Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education Center and PLAR Science. So we're on to the third week of Term 1B. So this week is the week of November 24th to November 28th. Wow, next week will be the first, December 1st will be when Sunday. Let me just check here. Yeah, next week will already be December. So it's going fast. So all students are still welcome to join the radio Zoom classes. And again, students who registers for IL courses, you can register at any time, but you have to complete the course on or before June 12th, 2026. Students that are already registered are encouraged to call their teachers or your teacher tutor marker. So if you're taking an IL course, make sure you contact your teacher tutor marker for help. They would have given you their emails. Also, you can connect with our counselors. Mary, she is our PLAR counselor, and we have also Michelle, who's working with students taking grade 9 to 12 courses. Potential graduates, make sure you're checking in with your teacher or our grad coach, Ronalda is her name, to make sure you're on track to finish all your courses by the June deadline. Remember that every course that you're completing will bring you closer to your graduation. Okay, I just want to congratulate our Term 1A winners. We have a student for submitting work. Student who submitted work. Our winner there is from Kijik Bay, and student who earned a credit. Our winner there is from Wapakika. So you should be receiving something in the mail for winning our Term 1A student draw. So for those of you who are still submitting work and earning a credit in Term 1B, your name will be going in for that draw. Okay, and these students were contacted to let them know that they have won the Term 1A draw. Okay, all junior PLAR students, once your application is assessed, we are now giving you a culminating activity to work on. So before we were asking, after you have been assessed, which culminating activity or if you want to do the lessons, but now what we're doing is giving you a culminating activity so that you don't have to wait to get started. Now this part is important. If you find the culminating too difficult, what you have to do is you have to let me know right away, or Bonnie, so depending on which culminating you are given, and we will send you the lessons instead. So if we don't hear from you and you have registered, you will get a culminating activity. Remember, to earn the equivalent credits, you need to complete all the required subjects or the culminating activity for that particular subject. So for example, if you have 0 credits from grades 9, 10, then you have to complete all the subjects to earn the 16 equivalent grade 9, 10 credits. So for PLAR history, there are 3 lessons. For PLAR geography, 2. PLAR science is 5. PLAR math has 5. And PLAR English has 5. So the easiest ones to start with are PLAR history, PLAR geography, and PLAR science, because you don't need the lessons to do the culminating. What you do there is you just read the information provided and then answer the questions based on what you read. So it doesn't hurt if you try the culminating first. Like I said, if you find it too difficult, then we will give you the lessons. So if you're a PLAR student and you have to do the history, then that's the culminating you will get first. Okay, so for students who need PLAR science and you decide to choose to complete the lessons, make sure you have lessons 1 to 5. So we completed lesson 1 already, astronomy. That particular lesson um, has 26 key questions. Lesson 2, biology. Now lesson 2 is quite short. There are only 14 key questions for biology. And you have chemistry. Chemistry has 24 key questions. Physics, that one is a short one. It only has 8. And then lesson 5 has 9 key questions. So again, you could get up to lesson 3 and decide that you want to do the culminating. You can still ask for the culminating and not finish lesson 4 and lesson 5. Now, if you have previous versions of these lessons, so if you have the 2024-25 and you've started working on the key questions from that version, I will still accept the submitted work. Okay, so don't start all over again. Send it anyway, and then I will give you the most current version for the lessons that you're working on. So if you are doing the culminating, so if you receive the PLAR Science culminating, what you need to do is you have to, first of all, read the instructions carefully. You can ask the DEC to print a hard copy for you, or if you don't have a DEC, maybe ask at the band office or maybe at the school if they can print a hard copy for you. If you can't, we can always send it up to you. It might take a little longer though. Once you get it, you can complete it at home, and again, it doesn't require supervision. Previously, you would have to go to the learning center or have someone to supervise. You don't have to do that anymore. You just take it home and you can complete it at your own pace. Okay, so make sure that, once you get it, and if you have any questions, let me know. You will be asked a question from each section. So you'll be asked, part A will be chemistry, then biology, astronomy, physics, and environmental science. And like I said, it's open book. What you're doing is you're just reading the information and then you're answering the questions. If you need extra help or support, if you're working through your key questions, culminating activity, make sure that you're checking out our YouTube channel. It's under the WASA Distance Education Center. So it will have this term 1B classes. It will also have last year's classes. So if you're working ahead, let's say if you're working on your OLC 4.0, you can watch the classes from term 1A, or if you're working on your MEL 3E, you can go to that particular class. So your best bet is when you go to the channel, go to the playlist section and it'll give you the list of classes with each. So the list of classes, and it'll have each course. And then once you click on the course, then it'll give you all the classes that have been broadcasted from that course. Now, if you don't have Wi-Fi or internet, you can still get a USB with all the classes. All you need is a device that has a USB port. And again, everything's organized by subject, then lessons with the key questions included. So if you request the PLAR science, This is how it's organized. It'll show you PLAR science, it'll give you the lesson, and it'll give you the key question numbers that's within that class. Okay, once you're ready to send in either your culminating or your lessons, you can use your iPhone Notes app. So when you use your Notes app on your phone, you can tap the camera icon and you can choose the scan documents and you can scan each page of your work. So when you do that, when you do the scanning, okay, you're eliminating the background as opposed to when you take a picture. Now, if you do take a picture, just double check to make sure that it's nice and clear. Okay, so if you can't read it, that means that we probably can't see it either. Another option is emailing your work. So you can attach your scanned document or photo to an email and you send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Make sure you CC it to me if it's history, geography, or science. And if it's math or English, make sure that you include Bonnie in the email. Another option is you can share it through Google Docs. So if you're working on it, or working on your assignment in Google Docs or you're culminating, just click the share button. And then in the box that pops up, you can type your teacher's email. And then just send it, and that will give me access to your document. Another option is have your DEC scan or fax it for you. If you're in Sioux Lookout, you could also drop it off at 74 Front Street. We still have the WASA outdoor mailbox. Just make sure you put your name on it. And again, if you have any questions, make sure that you contact the office. Okay, so we're in we're on week 3, and it says lesson 2 biology. It again is a very short lesson, so we'll probably start with chemistry by this week as well. Now for those students who are working on other PLAR subjects, so if you were working on your history geography from last term, make sure that you're focusing on one subject at a time. So if you have one that you have started with, so if you did PLAR history geography from last term, if you've already made the most progress on PLAR history, finish that first instead of switching between several subjects. So instead of working on your PLAR science, finish up what you have started first and that you've worked the most on. Okay, that way that you will finish something instead of, doing a little bit here and there. Okay, so this is what your lesson 2 biology cover page looks like. It tells you the key questions. It has all the information that you need. It shows you the WASA studio number. Now this one, the radio 91.9 FM, that's only local. Okay, that means if you're up north, you're not going to hear by trying to go onto 91.9 FM. You can listen to us though if you go to this link, okay, and that's online. So you have this on your cover page. You just put this URL. So you put HTTPS and then it goes on radio.co and all the other numbers and it says listen. Okay, I tried that and it's very clear. Other options, you can go into the Zoom link. So this is my Zoom link. It gives you my meeting ID and passcode. There's the office number if you need to get a hold of me with my extension. There's the fax number if you decide you want to fax your work. There's my email and there's my work Facebook. The WASA YouTube link is also there, and if you know someone who would want to apply, the WASA registration link is also there as well. Okay, so everything is on that page. If you're following along, if you look on page 2, it shows you the key questions that you'll be working on. And like I said, there are only 14. So there's the list of the 14 key questions that you will work on for lesson 2. Support questions, remember, are for practice. So that means that the answers are at the end of this lesson. You don't need to submit them for marking because the answers are there. So you can do a self-check to make sure that you're doing it properly. It's just the key questions that you need to submit if that's what you're working on. Okay, learning goals for biology. That means these are the things that you will learn. I can explain the role of the cell and its organelles. I can identify the differences between animal and plant cells. And I can describe the process of cell division. So on pages 3 to 5, we will look at the cell and two types, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Then on page 6, we'll look at the parts of a cell. Pages 7 to 10, organelles and their functions. Also on page 10, differences between animal and plant cells. And I think we'll get as far as page 12, the role of the cell membrane. Okay, still on page 3, so the introduction for biology. So when we look around our environment, we see many different types of living things. So if you look around, well, you see trees, flowers, you'll see dogs, cats, people, flowers, well, mostly trees now and snow. Some organisms like bacteria and molds, they are so tiny that we can't see them without a microscope. So focusing on these living things, they are studied in the field of biology. So when we look at the word biology, it does come from two Greek words, bios, which means life, and logos, which means the study of. So if you put it together, biology means the study of living organisms. So in this lesson, we're focusing on one part of biology, which is learning about cells, their structure and how they function. Okay, let's look at the word cell. So the cell is the basic unit, and it makes up all living organisms. It is the smallest part of a living thing that can carry out all the necessary functions to keep the organism alive. Cells are often called the building blocks of life. The study of cells is known as cell biology, and the cell was first discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. Okay, up next is the cell theory. Okay, the cell theory, that is just a scientific idea that explains how cells work and what they do. So there are main points that we will look at under the cell theory. The first point is that all living things are made up of one or more cells. So that means every living organism, whether it's a tiny bacteria or whether it's a large animal, they are made up of cells. Some organisms, like us, like humans, are made of trillions of cells, while others, like bacteria, are made up of just one cell. Okay, so that's the first point under the cell theory is all living things are made up of one or more cells. Okay, the second point is that the cell is the basic unit of a structure and function. What that means is that the cell is the smallest part of a living thing that can carry out all the functions needed to keep the organism alive, like getting energy, growing, and reproducing. And then the third point is that cells come from pre-existing cells. That means new cells are created when existing cells divide. This just tells us that cells don't just appear out of nowhere. They are formed by the process of cell division, where one cell splits into two. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's your cell. That's what you start with. Then the cell creates tissues, then it makes organs, and then you have the organ system, and then now you have the organism. Okay, so it starts off with a cell. So when we're studying organisms, it's important to understand that they may come in many different shapes, sizes, and numbers. So some organisms are made of just one cell, and they are called unicellular. And there are thousands of unicellular organisms like bacteria and amoeba. Other organisms are made up of many cells. So these type of organisms are referred to as multicellular organisms. And these include organisms like dogs, cats, humans, trees, and so on. Now, the number of cells in a multicellular organism can vary, and it depends on the species. So, for example, if we're talking about humans, humans have more than 10 trillion cells in their bodies. So again, if you look at the cell as the smallest building unit of our body, so you have cells, then you have tissues, then you have organs, and then you have systems. So if we go backwards, if you're looking at a person, so you have the different systems in your body, which is made of organs, which is made of tissues, which is made of cells. So again, if you have unicellular, these are organisms that are made of only one cell. So examples, algae, bacteria, plankton. Most of these you need a microscope to see single-celled organisms. On the other hand, you have multicellular organisms. These are made of more than one cell. So you can see here a picture of a dog, turtles. Okay, these are made of many cells. Living organisms, so whether we're talking about one cell or unicellular or multicellular, many cells, they have these certain characteristics. Okay, they have a specific shape and size. They can move. They can reproduce. That means they can make offspring or new cells. They digest food to get energy. They respond to changes in their environment. So they respond to stimulus. So for example, heat or light, sound. So they respond to it. They go through metabolism, which is how they store and release energy, and they get rid of waste. And cells have three main jobs. They make energy, so cells need energy for all their activities and must clean up the waste created with making energy. They make proteins, so proteins do most of the work in the cell, so cells need to produce a lot of them. And they make more cells, so cells divide to help an organism grow and replace any damaged or sick cells. Okay, so cells are important, and you can see at the bottom there, these are their jobs. That's their function. They make energy, they make proteins, and they make more cells. Okay, so we'll try key questions 27 to 30, and you can find these questions on page 50. So remember, when you're doing the key questions, you don't need anything else but your lesson material. You don't need to use the internet or Wi-Fi to look for answers. It's all in there. Okay, key question 27. It's pretty straightforward. What does the word biology mean? So you can start your answer with biology means, and then you can write your answer there. Key question 28 says identify, that means tell me, the three main claims of cell theory. So remember, we looked at 3 points. I want you to tell me the 3 points. And what you can do is you could just number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, the 3 main claims. Make sure you're reading under cell theory. And then key question 29 says, what does unicellular mean? So that's the first part of the question. So make sure you answer that first. So you can say unicellular means ... And I only need one example. So an example, and then you give me that example. Key question 30. What does multicellular mean? So now you will tell me this time. Multicellular means, and then this time you give me 2 examples. So 2 examples of multicellular are, I'll give you one, humans, and you can find the other one. Okay, let's continue on to the next section here. Okay. Okay, turn to page 4. So page 4, you'll see on the heading, prokaryotic cells. So if you can't pronounce that, or you're not sure how to pronounce it, you can always check it online. That's when you can go online and you just type in the spelling for prokaryotic, and you'll see that it can give you the pronunciations for it. Okay, two types. So there are two types of cells. One is eukaryotic, which have a nucleus, and then we have prokaryotic, and that one does not have a nucleus. When we look at prokaryotic cells, we know that they are always single-celled organisms, okay, or unicellular. On the other hand, eukaryotes, they can be single-celled or they can be made up of many cells. Okay, so that's the big difference. In prokaryotes or yotes, the DNA is not inside a nucleus. Instead, it floats around in the cell in a clump. So here's a picture of a prokaryotic cell. Most prokaryotes are bacteria, and they can do amazing things. Even though they're simple, bacteria live all over Earth. So some scientists think they might even live on other planets like Mars. You can find bacteria in your body. You can even find it in yogurt and even in a bakery. So prokaryotes are the simplest kind of living things. Okay, so let's just go over that again. So the main characteristics, there's no organized nucleus. Okay, there's no organelles, meaning they don't have organelles like chloroplasts, mitochondria, or a nucleus, which is, we'll be looking at these more in the following pages. They are small in size. Okay, they're very small because they don't have all the extra parts that other cells have. While they are bigger than viruses, they are tiny compared to cells like amoebas. They have no mitosis or meiosis, which means that they don't go through the normal processes of cell division. Instead, scientists aren't exactly sure how they duplicate. But what they know is it's not the same way that other cells do. Okay, what about eukaryotic cells? Well, eukaryotic cells are the kind of cells most people think of when they hear the word cell. Eukaryotic cells can do many things, and they are responsible for the advanced functions that allow organisms to become more specialized. Without eukaryotic cells, complex life forms like humans wouldn't exist. Okay, so let's look at the characteristics of eukaryotic cells. They have an organized nucleus, which means that they have a brain for the cell, which is a well-organized nucleus where they store their DNA. Okay, that's why it's often called a true nucleus. Organelles. Eukaryotic cells usually have organelles like mitochondria. These are the energy producers. Chloroplasts in plant cells, and endoplasmic reticulum for transporting materials. They are larger size, so they can be much larger than prokaryotic cells. They are typically several hundred times bigger, although their size is still limited by how easily things can move around inside the cell. And they have extra structures. So eukaryotic cells have extra parts like flagella, which is a tail-like structures that help them move, and cilia, which are small hair-like structures that help them move through water. So these extra parts help the cell do more complex tasks. So if we compare a picture of a eukaryote and a prokaryote, or eukaryotic and prokaryotic, you can see the difference here on the bottom of the screen. Okay, so turn to page Turn to page 6. On page 6, you will see the same picture. It says the parts of a cell is the heading. The only difference between my picture and your picture is that the one that you have is not in color, but it should still be clear enough. It shows you the different parts of a cell. So what we're looking at is a typical animal cell. Each cell has organelles, which are special parts inside the cell that each have a specific job. So what's shown here are the most common organelles that are found in most living things. So you can see the lines pointing to the different parts. So it says cytoplasm, so that blue stuff. Cell membrane, you can see on the outer edge there. Mitochondrion, nucleus, DNA, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosome, ribosome, and Golgi apparatus. Okay, so let's look at all the different parts. And again, if you're not sure how to pronounce and would like to know what it sounds like, you can go to this website, https www.howtopronounce.com. Once you're there, you type in the word that you want to pronounce, and notice the play button, and then it has these waves around or beside it. It will give you the pronunciation. So you could turn on your volume and, well, let me just show you here. So this one, it shows you eukaryotic. So if you press that play button, so if you press that, you can listen to, oh, I don't want to watch the ad there. That's the only thing, you'll see all these ads. Okay, so you just play that and it'll tell you what it sounds like. And if you want another word, so let's say if you put Golgi, notice it comes up, the pronunciation in English, and you just click that, and then it will play. Okay, so that's one way if you're not sure how each is pronounced, or each word. Okay, let's look at the different organelles and their functions. Okay, the following describes the different organelles that's found in plant and or animal cells and their functions. That means what they're responsible in doing, okay, for the organism. Okay, another word for function is, so sometimes when you're looking at people's jobs, you might see their responsibilities. So the same thing with organelles. They have a responsibility. It's something that they're supposed to do within the cell. Okay, the first one is the cell membrane. So if you look on page 7, that's the first one. That is also referred to as the plasma membrane. And what it does is it acts like a flexible barrier around the cell. Okay, it separates it from the outside environment. So think of it think of it like a fence between two yards, but this fence can move and change shape as needed. The cell membrane lets helpful things like nutrients enter the cell and allows waste to leave, just like a gate in a fence. So if they want to get rid of waste, they open the gate in a fence, okay, to let it out. It also helps keep everything inside the cell balanced and working properly. So if you see the picture of the cell membrane, that's what it looks like. It's semi-permeable. That means it can keep some things out and let some things in. It protects contents of the cell from outside world. You can think of them as bouncers or securities. Okay, so if there's something or someone unruly, they can get rid of them. So think of them as that. That's their job. Okay, the next one is cytoplasm. Now, cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that fills the space outside the nucleus and surrounds the cell's organelles. Now, it's thinner than toothpaste, and it makes up more than half the space inside an animal cell. Think of the cytoplasm like a cushion or a bubble that holds the organelles in place and keeps them protected. Okay, why does the cell need it? Well, the cells need it because it allows organelles to move around the inside of the cell. Also, the fluid helps regulate the cell's temperature and pH level. It can be found in both plant and animal cells. So you can see, if you're looking at the screen, you can see that's the cytoplasm. You can see the contents are moving. It's letting things flow inside it. Okay, still on page 7, the third one is the nucleus. Now the nucleus, that is the biggest organelle in the cell. It holds the cell's DNA and controls how the cell works. So DNA is short for deoxyribonucleic acid, and what it is like a set of instructions for living things. It's found in almost every cell and tells the cell how to work, grow, and stay healthy. So you can think of DNA like a recipe book or a blueprint. It carries the information needed to build and run the body. This information is stored in a special code and is only made up of 4 letters. The letter A, letter T, C, and G. So these letters are arranged in specific ways to give instructions, just like words in a sentence. So DNA is passed from parents to children, which is why family members often look alike. Okay, so that's DNA. The other one is what you know as genes. Okay, Genes. Now, genes are like little pieces of DNA that act as instructions for making specific parts of your body or controlling how it works. They tell your body things like what color your eyes will be, how tall you might grow, or how your body fights off sickness. So you can tell it apart from DNA as, think of genes like individual recipes in a cookbook. So DNA is the cookbook, the genes are the individual recipes within the cookbook. So each one telling your body how to make something important. And again, genes are passed down from your parents, which is why you might look like them or share similar traits. Okay, still on page 7. you have what it's called nucleolus, and you can refer to the nucleolus as little nucleus. This is a small part inside the nucleus. So just like your brain is an important part of your body that helps you move, talk, and do other things by sending signals, the nucleolus has an important job too. Okay, so their main job or responsibility is to make the small pieces or subunits that come together to form ribosomes. Now, the ribosomes are like the construction workers of the cell. They help build the proteins the cell needs to function. So if you're looking for the nucleolus or little nucleus, it's a visible darker staining region inside the nucleus. So this little dot here. And again, that's where the RNA and ribosomes are made. Okay, up next, ribosomes, we already talked about. They're like construction workers of the cell. They are the tiny structures in the cell where enzymes and proteins are made. And again, they follow their instructions from the DNA. Think of ribosomes as small factories spread throughout the cell. Okay, they're following the recipe from the DNA. Unlike other organelles, ribosomes don't have a membrane around them. Okay, so think of them as tiny protein factories. The cell needs it, again, because they read the messages, so they're following the instructions in the cell's DNA. They translate the codes, and without them, the DNA would be useless. Ribosomes can be found in both plant and animal cells. Okay, now you can turn to page 8. Okay, when you look at page 8, the first one there on top is mitochondria. Again, these are organelles where food is broken down to release energy. This energy is stored in special molecules that the cell uses to power its activities. They are referred to as the powerhouses of the cell. So if you think of mitochondria as energy factories, what they're doing is they're processing food to create the energy the cell needs to work. Okay, each mitochondrion has an outer membrane and a folded inner membrane. So the folds provide a large surface area where energy storing molecules are made. Okay, so again, think of them as the powerhouse of the cell. They're converting energy so that it can be used in the cell. Okay, next is the endoplasmic reticulum. And if you don't want to say endoplasmic reticulum, you can just say ER. That is a folded membrane inside the cell and forms a network of connected spaces. And because it's folded, it can fit a large area into a small space. So think of a box of tissues. So when you take the tissues out, they cover a big area. So if you took out all the tissues and you laid them out on the floor, you will cover a big area. But when the tissues are inside the box, they just fit inside the box, so they fit neatly in it. Well, that's how the ER fits into the cell, okay, because they're folded. The ER has two parts. You have the rough ER, which is covered with ribosomes, and they help make proteins. Then you also have the smooth ER. Now, the smooth ones helps make fats and other materials. Plus, it removes harmful substances from a cell. So if you look at the pictures on the bottom of the screen, okay, this is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. You can see that there. And then this is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so you can see that how they're folded, and it works like the cell's delivery system. It transports materials where they're needed. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stop here. So that's on page 8. We looked at endoplasmic reticulum. When we come back tomorrow, we will continue on page 8 and we'll look at the rest of the organelles and their functions. Okay, thank you for joining me. Miigwech.